Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to All Sex Talk, your channel of alternative sexuality. This is Master Taíno, and today we're going to start a new playlist called Interviews. We're going to use this playlist to interview people who bring topics that are interest to us. In previous videos, you have heard me talking a lot about how we build relationships, not following the rules of society, but following our heart, based on connection, not necessarily in sex and gender. So today we're going to be talking with one person that lived that type of relationship. And we have from San Francisco, California, Slave Trudy. How are you doing, Trudy?
I'm good today. Thank you very much,
Good.
sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well,
Okay.
Trudy is a slave. She is a female heterosexual woman, as you could see, very pretty. Uh, but she chose to serve a gay male master. And for many people, that is like, what? Okay, so we're going to find out what exactly is that. Okay, Slave Trudy, why you decided to serve a gay male master who is also poly is another thing in the back. Come
Right.
on, tell us about it.
Well, so it was sort of a journey in and of itself. A lot of that was in my own self discovery. But after having had two failed marriages, which it was very clear when I figured out that I was kinky why those marriages weren't going to work very well with vanilla men. Um, but anyways, so I went on a search for myself, really, and I got introduced to Butchman's. Butchman's was an organization based in male dynamics, and so I happened to get to know a bunch of gay male men who I learned to respect in a way I never expected. Their integrity, their transparency, their personal development exceeded everything I'd been introduced to. And there were three of them who'd been the instructors for that academy, which was a weekend event, for many years together. And at some point, a couple of them decided they'd done it long enough and they were going to move on to other things in their lives. Then they invited other male gay men to join the academy. And one of those people was Master Z. And so he would come to the Butchman's weekend, and I would come because the messages were all very important to me and meaningful and shifted my thoughts on things every single time. And but he would always come alone, and the other two masters who were instructors always brought their slaves with them. And over time, I got up the nerve to ask him if I could serve him for the weekend. And he said yes. And I said, well, sometimes you have another slave there with you. I didn't want to infringe on that. And he said, two, three, all the better. I have no objections. And so I had that opportunity. It wasn't just me serving him that particular weekend. And when I got home early on in that next week, I wrote to him and thanked him for him allowing me to have that opportunity to serve him. And his response to me was, it felt just right. And it was a message to me that felt like, okay, we're on track. And so I continued to pursue just serving him at those weekends. And so I got to know him slowly. Because of that, I live 2,000 miles away from him. He's in Texas and I'm in California. So our weekends at Butchman's were our opportunity to get to know each other. And ultimately, he asked me if I was going to petition to be in service to him. And again, I felt like that was, sort of the nudge. And I said, well, are you sure that you would want a heterosexual woman? And he said, I already have one. What's one more? And so he had me meet with his other slave who was heterosexual and female. And now he had males in service to him also. But anyways, I sat down at MSC and had a very long conversation with her about what it would be like to serve him. And one of her first questions to ask me was, "Do you expect to be having sex with him?" And I said, "Oh, hell no, he's a gay man." She said, "Well, you do know that he has at some point in his life not always known that he was a gay man." And I said, "That's fine." But in my book, that's not a boundary I'm crossing. And so ultimately, I petitioned him, and it has worked out. It's different, but it's very clean. There is no other dynamic. I really had to look inside myself a lot and say, do I want a lover? Do I want a husband? Do I want sexual partner? What was the one piece of my life that wasn't fulfilled? And would that make me feel complete if I had that one piece? And that one piece was that I didn't have a master. And as a slave, that's something you're like a heat seeking missile towards. You could pick them out of a room, you know, that person is, and you kind of, head towards them. But, so I got to find that out in joining, and I served him for a year in a temporary collar. And at the end of the year, he collared me permanently. And it's been 8 years that we've been in relationship together. So it's worked out.
Your story kind of validate what I teach when I talk about this, that the relationship of master slave, although it can include sexual uh, relation and BDSM,
Mhm.
that is not even required to have it.
Right.
That what is required is the surrender by the slave and the responsibility by the master. Is that exactly what you found?
Absolutely. I found that my ability to surrender was in direct proportion to his ability to be responsible for the orders he gave. If he had ever given me an order and then was not accountable for the outcome of it, even though I fulfilled it exactly as he requested, that would break a sort of trust for me that would have to be rebuilt. Because most of the things that he would ask me to do are things that are a stretch for me. They aren't things that I would have done normally in my day-to-day life, or that I would have done for anybody else, really. Maybe one or two other people I've met in my lifetime that I would have been glad to respond, yes, sir, with. But it's worked out because his integrity is so high. And you, sir, know him very well and know who he is. And while the listening audience doesn't, we know that he stands on his word. His word is everything. And so yes, absolutely, those two things have got to be equal.
About 11 years ago, I had that experience. I had a girl from New York City in service to me for about a year. It didn't work out any beyond that, but it was similar. There was no sex, it was service, but we were able to find uh, two things that we were able to do in BDSM that becomes our intimate moments. She loves spanking, so I will do spanking with her, and I love flogging, so she led. By the way, we met in my flogging class in an event. So, but that was limited to that, to spanking and flogging. Do you have anything that you do to have some sort of intimacy with him?
Well, I think you've been to a Butchman's weekend, so you know that those include physical experiences. There are three of them that we do within every single weekend. We do flogging, your love, and we do piercing, and we do mummification.
Mhm.
And so for me, the piece that I was kind of surprised about, because flogging is one of my loves to be on the receiving end of, as someone who I ultimately gained the access to being one of the staff and ultimately a Butchman's instructor myself, the requirement of us being in staff and instructors is that we have to be available to do either side of an activity, depending on the number of attendees and who wants to be a bottom or a top. We shift our responsibilities to the organization to make sure we have an even number of those things, so that one receiver and one giver is always available to each person. And but I found that piercing became my love. I mean, I would, whenever they wanted to demo on somebody, I was like, I'll be the demo bottom, please
And I know
pierce me all you
he's
want.
very good at that.
Yeah, yes, yes, he is very good at that.
How you figure out to serve him for so long, for the years that you have been in service to him from a distance? That's a
Well,
challenge.
so it's a different relationship. We not only are a distance, but we're two time zones away from each other. So, and he's a man who goes to bed at about 8:30 in Texas, 8:30. And so that's about my dinner time here. And he's up at about 1 or 2 in the morning, his time. Well, I'm about going to bed then. So we have to work hard on finding those even times of day to talk. In the time that I've been in service to him, as you know, he's become a Buddhist monk. And so many of his own ways that he chooses to serve his calling takes him away from all of the slaves in service to him. He does prison ministries. He has turned his living space into, a place for meditation, and he travels a lot to Buddhist retreats. And so it is his spiritual calling. It is, clearly fills something for him. And I would never do anything to get in the way. So if I do nothing else but support his choices, that to me is a service to him and
Mhm.
his to me. Our conversations are very in depth. I start off every conversation with him, telling him exactly where I'm at on that day in that moment. It is part of his request of me is my transparency. And so if I tell him what has preceded, maybe the previous week of ups and downs, and share those with him, then he kind of knows a little bit more about what my my level of happiness or discomfort or whatever. He has a better idea rather than my letting him just sort of guess or have to question me about all those things. I am forthcoming with those things. And when I need to talk to him about something, when I need his guidance, he's always there for me. He never says, oh, no. Now, he might, say, give me a half an hour, it's not terrible, but he's always makes time for a conversation. I used to think that the best part about Butchman's weekends was that I got to actually serve him meals, like actually get to walk in and do something physically for him because it felt from a distance that I didn't. But he kept saying, it's not what I need from you. What I need from you is your obedience. And when I ask you for something, then I want that. And right now, what I want you to do is take care of yourself. I want you to continue to grow and develop and expose yourself to new things and figure out who you are. So,
Is it difficult for you to explain or how you explain to others? I know in our community they're more accepting, but still there are people who wonder what the stray girl is doing with a gay man in this master-slave relationship. How you explain that when people question, when people are, what?
so I had to have that conversation with my sister. My sister lives in Victoria, so we don't see each other all that often. But we took a trip to the Midwest to see all of our family in and out of the grave. We stopped at every gravesite from Texas all the way to South Dakota, and visited. But along the path on the way home, on the way back to Texas, I decided this was a perfect time. I had her captive. She couldn't exactly projectile out of the car. So I would tell her, and her response to me when I told her I was in service to a gay man and was his collared slave, and she said to me, Trudy, I don't want to know about your sex life. I said, I don't think you understood what I said. What I just said was I'm in service to a gay man. We don't have sex, like, sorry, sis. She said, well, then what's the point? And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I can't explain that to you. You don't understand the dynamic of master and slaves. And, until you do, there's no words I can give to you that will have you understand that when that connection happens, it happens. And it's not like you can go out and just sort of pick anybody and make them into what you need. It's not a vanilla relationship. It's really a very unique dynamic. And I will say that I believe, I have no research on this, that there are more slaves than masters. And because of that, many of the best masters have multiple slaves in service to them. So learning how to share was something I was afraid of. I wasn't sure I could do that, but I knew I wanted to challenge myself. I've actually found it very comforting. It's really wonderful to have a family, to have, other slaves to discuss things with. Just, I love it. So I have no regrets.
And that is precisely what we're doing this video. For people who don't get it, usually the title will attract them. I have another video, controversials about straight men submitting to gay men. And that has been one of the most popular videos. So I hope that a lot of people hear in your own voice here and can understand what you do and what many other people are doing. You're not the only one. Finally, after I don't say how many years, but after all this year that you have been in service to Master Z, how you see, look back, any regrets, how you evaluate the whole experience?
So I have no regrets. I have no regrets. If there's any sort of concern I have, if you want to call it that, it is that what does the future look like? We have a election coming up, which could have very pivotal things happen in a negative way to all of us in our community. And that's a little terrifying to me because I can't control any of the pieces of that. But I did have a conversation with him the other day about it. And he said, Slave, if we have to all move together to be together, we'll go to some other country. We will stay a family no matter what. I'm not going to, over an election, lose my family. So that gave me comfort.
Yeah, that thought also lay out clearly the level of commitment that we do in our relationships. There could be tough times, but we're going to stay with each other. I personally consider that master-slave relationship, in more ways than one, are sometimes more powerful than the regular, because involved that surrender. That's not for weak people. That's a big thing. And that's why I have such respect for slaves and also for the masters, especially when we take responsibility for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people sometimes. That's a big responsibility. Not everybody wants to deal with the issues and the dynamics and the relationship with so many people. So I think this was great, and I hope that it helped a lot of people understanding this non-traditional relationship within our non-traditional master-slave relationship. So Trudy, thank you very much for being for us. To our YouTubers, please subscribe. Don't forget about that. You can find me at mastertaino.com. And I hope you enjoy. This is the first of many interviews that we will be adding to our channel. Thank you and see you in the next one. Bye-bye, Trudy.
Bye-bye.